Call this meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is invocation by Trinity Lutheran. Call this meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I just love America.
Let us pray. Lord God, storms rage around us, sometimes in ways we cannot understand. We watch as tornadoes dance across the plains and cause destruction. We hear of Bible campers and counselors and others washed away in floods. Tropical storms turn off lights and turn on fears in the Carolinas. Sometimes it's rumblings in the sky or fire on the hillsides or hurricanes on the coast, ground shaking with quakes or volcanic eruptions. And we don't understand. Storms rage around us. Sometimes in our personal lives, our families, our relationships, our communities. In these times when we don't understand what to do, we turn to you, Lord, for calm, for hope, for reassurance. And as we gather tonight and as this meeting begins, we turn to you for direction. Amen.
Thank you. Start with the roll call.
Savers.
Here.
Goldhammer.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington. Bathke. Turks. Here. Smith.
Here. Okay. We have a quorum. We're going to start with recommendations by Mayor Hansen to reappoint department heads from July 2025 to July 2028. 28. Is this a vote thing or we just start reading? Okay. So does everyone come up here? Okay. All right, so we're going to start with the oath of office for all the department heads. Raise your hand. You guys all have a copy? Okay, you guys are prepared. I state your name.
I, Justin Johnson,
Having been appointed to the office of
having been appointed to the office of City Attorney
within and for the city of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota,
within the storm of the city of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, and ordinances of said city of Mitchell,
the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, and ordinances of said city of Mitchell,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability,
perform all duties of the office of
perform all duties of the office of City Attorney.
Thank you. Everyone can clap now. Okay, next, election of officers, president and vice president.
Well, I think Kevin's done a great job this year, and I'll be the first to admit I should have voted for him last year. So this year I'm going to nominate him.
Second.
Sorry, Marty.
I should have probably done the same thing, so I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We do one at a time, right? Okay. Are we taking any other nominations, or do we just vote on this one first? Sorry, it's been a long time since, and it was my first day last time I did this, so
We could flip a coin.
not yet.
It's a possibility.
Did you? Okay.
Second.
Okay. Let's do a roll call on this one.
Dosher.
Aye.
McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
No.
Turks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Savers.
Aye.
Goldhammer.
Okay, that motion carries. Not yet. Vice President to City Council.
I'll go ahead and start this off because I currently serve on that seat. With some changes in my position at work, in a good way, may I add. Obviously, I think some of us on council know there's been a couple times I couldn't get back in time, and I've had a few other ones fill in for me, and Tim being one of them, and Jeff has filled in a couple of them also. And I appreciate those stepping up. It's always nice to have enough of us in those meetings when we have a meeting with the mayor and the officers and Stephanie to keep things updated and keep the rest of the council and up to date too and in favor of things. So I think they both do an outstanding job, and I know over the years of my visit with Tim and stuff like that, I really admire what Tim has done for the council and what he's brought to the table with the council. So I'd like to relieve my duties, if you want to call it, and nominate Tim for the vice president of the council.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All right, let's do a roll call on this one then. What?
Any other
Oh,
nominations?
is there any? Sorry, like I said, first timer last year. Is there any other nominations?
Move that nomination cease.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Let's do a roll call again.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Savers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Motions both carried. Congratulations. Okay, next, Mayor Hanson recommendation of City Council assignments.
I got a quick question because I've had a couple calls from people from the court, from the development corp. They were kind of blindsided with Jeff. They worked well with Jeff, they told me, and I was just curious if Jeff had any idea that was happening either, because I had 4 or 5 of them call me and ask me about it.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to call Jeff, and then I totally got it. It was a very busy week. The reason I made the choice, I wanted to keep him across the street. It seems like you work well over there. Development Corporation, I think Mike Bathke has probably more experience in development than probably most people on the council and probably most people in the entire city. So that's why I chose him. He spent a lifetime in development. I think he'd do a good job over there. And I wanted to make sure you stayed across the street, Jeff, so I just switched your guys' roles. That was my recommendation.
Well, I think I've worked pretty well with the Development Corp, and I've always made sure that I came back and presented. I know I presented to them as a committee, and I come back here and give my update of you guys heard me several times saying I'm the liaison, and so my preference would be staying on the Development Corp if you guys would want me to.
What about, because Mike, obviously, we all know what you owned for business over several years and there's been a lot of building. And I'm not moving things around, Dosher. I don't know where you said or thought about this, but I think a better spot for Mike is actually on the Planning Commission, because Mike is very familiar with construction and all the stuff that goes through with this process. And if there's a give and take, I guess, in a roundabout way, I think you would serve a great purpose on Planning Commission, Mike. And I don't know, once again, Dosha, I know you currently serve on that spot, but I see you got a couple other spots too, so maybe it would be a possible give and take a little bit with Mike on planning and keep Jeff where he's currently at. Because I do also agree, Jeff, I think you have a good relationship with Development Corp and everything else over there, and I think you deserve to belong there and stay there. So.
I will say that I guess I don't know that I have a bad relationship with them. I guess me and Mike get along fairly well, I think. As far as going to planning zoning, I will absolutely turn that down because there'll be too many conflicts with me building. I'm retired, but I'm involved in a lot of different projects, whether it's for myself personally or through some contractors that I've worked for over the years, and I just know that I wouldn't be able to, I guess, I know, John, you don't vote, but I would be, wouldn't be able to be partial to some of the decisions made there, and I think that sometimes it gets a little hairy. I think we have one tonight that's going to get a little hairy that I actually know about. I used to live there.
Mike, jeez.
Can you just talk into Kevin's mic, John? Because it's
I don't need it.
okay.
You are just the liaison to that group. You don't want to vote. You don't.
That's right.
You sit there and you shut up. So you try to. So I don't have a problem with you doing that because you are knowledgeable of it. And if they have to ask a question, you as a councilman, you can answer. But otherwise, you don't need to volunteer anything.
Yeah.
I see it sort of more as, as guidance and stuff like that. And that's definitely one area that I believe you have, Mike, is there's not a lot you don't know about, the planning and zoning and stuff like that for what you've done over the years of your past experience in your job, obviously, with your company you owned.
I guess I look at it like this now: is I had somebody reach out to me probably a little over a year or two ago now, and it was in reference to our former mayor. And I think that if the mayor wants this, I think the mayor should get this, because until he's replaced at the ballot box, as was stated to me, he is in charge. So I guess I'm gonna leave it to Jordan, the mayor. If he wants me to go to planning and zoning, I'll do whatever he wants me to do.
These are just my recommendations, and if you have to be quiet, you might not be a good fit there. Just kidding. But no. I guess this is what I thought. I thought everyone else is doing a good job. Nothing bad against Jeff at all. I hope he doesn't take it that way. I just think that Mike has spent a lifetime in doing that position. I think you do a really good job. I'm not saying you're doing a bad job, Jeff. I just think you do a really good job. And again, these are just my recommendations, and you guys make the decisions ultimately. So
I'll make a motion to put Jeff there at the Development Corp.
okay, we have a motion in a second. Further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call on this as well.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher.
Aye.
McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
No.
Okay. Approval of consent. I feel like my mic's not very loud and John's is really loud. Okay. Approval.
Well, we still.
To put Mike on the planning commission.
What was that?
Then I'll make a motion to approve the rest of the list as written.
Oh, I thought that's what we were doing. I guess I. Okay. So,
No, with Mike on plan. Is that right? Or
Well,
let's just approve the entire thing because I thought that's what we were doing rather than every individual list. So you want Mike to sit on two
John, you're
boards?
on 3 committees. Do you want to get rid of any of them?
Planning and zoning, site construction.
I will do it to give John a break.
okay. So I'll make a motion to amend the list to put Mr. Bathke on planning and zoning, and then approve all other recommendations as written.
Second.
So the chamber then. Who's on the chamber? Is that Mike again? Jeff's on the chamber and the development corporation. He's on both. I just want to make sure we're clear. Okay. Do we have a motion on that? Is that what your motion is? Keep the entire rest of it the same. You're just changing Jeff to add on to the development corporation, and Mike is going to planning and zoning. Is that correct? Okay. We have a motion. Did we have a second on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Any further discussion before we move on? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Would anyone like to remove anything? Or does anyone have any
Move
questions?
approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, roll call.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher.
Aye.
McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Motion carries. All right, citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Would anyone like to address the council?
I'll speak really quickly. A couple of the city council members invited me to come do this. My name's Chase Moon. I work as of 3 weeks ago here in Mitchell at the South Dakota State University Extension Office, just over by the Technical College. I am a community vitality and community development specialist there, one of about 5 in the state. Eventually there'll be a 6th one. I just wanted to sort of introduce myself, hand out a few things, if that's all right. I could just pass these around. This is basically what we do, the programs that we offer. One of the things that I'm trying to do as someone that's new to this role and that's new to the state, I'm from Minnesota, is get a sense of the kind of issues that are facing a variety of local communities around here, not just Mitchell, but other ones in the area. So I'm trying to attend a lot of city council, town board meetings and stuff like that, and get a sense of what the issues are, what people are concerned about, what people are doing about them. So I'll just sort of be in the audience sometimes, getting a sense of that. My team at the Extension offers a variety of programs based on community development, community vitality, stuff like that. We're looking at offering other ones. I'm looking at potentially offering other ones. For example, I'm looking at starting a program, say, on festival development in towns that have lost theirs. Obviously, that's not an issue here. So I'm just sort of happy to meet you all, happy to be here. My office is always available. I'm always happy to talk to people about that on the council as well as members of the public. I'll be meeting with the Development Corp at their meeting next week. They invited me to sit down on that as well. So I guess that's what I've got to say. Just want to say hi and
So
a chance to be
tell
here.
us what you do like on a daily basis. So you get up in the morning, you go to work, and what do you do for?
Well, I'm still sort of getting settled into it at this point. What I've been working on right now, I'm writing articles for the Extension on different issues that I think are important and solutions to them. Right now, what I'm doing, for example, is writing an article on the state of local media and local newspapers in South Dakota. Nice. So I've been speaking to local newspapers in all sorts of different towns around here about the issues that they're facing, for example. That's one of them. I'm attending meetings like this. We have something called the First Impressions Program that I'm getting in on, which has just started, where we match 2 different small towns and have members from each of those towns go to the other town and do a bunch of stuff, sort of like a secret shopper type of thing. And they evaluate what it's like as a tourist, for example, to be in those places. Different things like that. We offer training. We offer grant writing workshops, programs on agritourism, for individuals, for community groups, local governments, all sort of things like that. So a lot of it's offering the programs we have, looking at other programs that there's a need for. Some of it's my own, extension articles that I'm writing and training that I'm taking on things. We have office hours at the Extension office to meet with people and talk to them about their concerns and the things they're interested in and things that we could be getting involved with. I'm sure there'll be a lot more going on as I get settled into things more, but that's sort of an example.
Thank you.
Welcome to Mitchell.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Would anyone else like to address the council? Okay, moving on to the next one. Mayor and City Council discussion items.
I got a quick one. I've got a couple calls on 6th and Windsor Street. There was, I don't know if it was fatal last week or not, but I know there was a real bad accident. I don't know if the person died in it or not, got hit on a moped. With them tearing the high school down, we have stop signs on Capitol Street because that was the busy street. Now I think Windsor will be another one because they're going to have 2 different arteries out of the parking lots. And we have stop signs from 7th, 6th, 5th. I don't know if it goes, I think 4th has one on Capitol. It's probably not a bad idea. Way traffic goes down that road. There's a yield sign there, but they don't yield very good there because I sat there one night for a little bit and watched them, and they probably 30, 35 miles an hour yield on that street. And kids get in a hurry to go to lunch, when the new high school opens up. So I don't think it would be a bad idea for us to look at maybe putting a stop sign at 6th and maybe 4th, just to slow traffic down over the noon hour for kids. But I had 3 or 4 people in that street that after they saw that accident, they thought it probably wasn't a bad idea with school coming up soon.
Yeah, and Joe, Mr. Schrader, and Chief Knepling are both pulling traffic data from those intersections for now. But of course, things are going to change, like you said, after they build it. So, okay, anything else? All right, sounds good. I just want to say one thing. It's been 1 year that I was mayor and one of the best years of my life. So thanks everyone for having a good time with me. All right, Board of Adjustment. entertain a motion for the city council to recess and sit as the Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Oldtimer, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Hearing and action on the application for Maurice and Julie Hartman variance permit. Maurice and Julie Hartman have applied for a variance permit for the rear yard setback of 3 feet versus 25 feet for an attached garage. This is located at 1301 Roland Lane, or legally described as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission motion to recommend approval of a 5-foot rear yard setback instead of the 3-foot rear yard setback. Notices were sent out to neighbor, signs posted, published in the paper. There was one letter returned in favor, one letter opposed to the 3-foot, but was okay with a 10-foot setback there. There is a 5-foot utility easement along the back portion of the property line. And that's why Planning Commission recommended 5 foot to the overhang with a 2-foot overhang and be a 7 foot to the wall of the garage. He's like to put an attached garage onto his house. He'll have access off of North Foster Street. He'll have to have an approach put in, cut down some pine trees for that. I can answer any questions you have. The applicant's here if you have any questions for him as well.
Are the applicants agreeable with that change?
He said he would be fine with the 5 foot.
I move approval.
Motion approved.
He already motioned to approve, so will you second? Okay. We got a motion and a second. Okay.
Just to clarify, we're doing the 5 foot, the change.
Is your motion the 5 foot?
Motion to approve the motion, yes.
Motion to approve the 5 foot.
And
And a second to approve the 5 foot.
they're in favor of it, right?
I have one question here, Mark. Yep. Where is the water? I guess I can see how his roof is now. I assume he's going to continue it the same way. Where is that water going to drain? Because he's getting really close to 2 different property lines to run into the backyard of one and the side yard of the other.
I can't answer that. I would have the applicant come up and answer that
Okay.
for you.
Good evening. As the property sits now, the water drains between my house and the neighbor to the east. That'd be Ron Wormer's house. Nothing drains across our backyard right now. It's too high for that. So nothing would change as far as drainage is concerned.
Where's it drain? It drains into his backyard or
It
between
drains
you two to the street?
between us to the street.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions for the applicant?
You're okay with the change that we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any further?
I have one more recommendation. Just because I've seen this happen, make sure you have it professionally surveyed. I'd really like to see us maybe move to that. As a
Did that 2
condition.
years ago.
Okay, just to be sure,
What's
because
that?
I've seen people do it and they come back here and they're asking for forgiveness later. So.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this?
Good evening, Jeff Balke. I'm the owner of the property. Can you bring the back? Owner of the property to the south, which it's an encroachment on my property. I have intentions of building onto that structure, and I really don't want that there because the window looking to the north would now look at the back of this garage. So, and it is in the easement. I know it's been negotiated to be out of the easement, but there's easements there for a reason. So, and there is no hardship. We've discussed this in here several times. When you approve a variance, there has to be a hardship. Nobody's ever mentioned what the hardship is. So I'd ask you to deny this. Thank you.
Would anyone else in the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Hearing an action on the application for Carl Knight variance permit. Carl Knight has applied for a variance permit for a rear yard setback of 11 feet versus 25 feet for an attached covered patio. This is located at 318 Christine Street, legally described as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jennings.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this. There were 2 letters returned in favor. Notices were sent out to neighbors, signed, posted, published in the paper. He would like to put an attached covered patio over his existing patio that he has. This is just a rendering that he had an architect or designer come up with for that location. The discussion during Planning Commission was they've been approved in the past for something like this, but then in the future they come back in and close around the whole thing. And his purpose right now is not to enclose it, but we've seen it happen in the past before for other locations. Just something that we have to monitor in the future for it. I can answer any questions that you have for me.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Hearing an action on the application for Myron Van Buskirk second amended and restated revoked trust conditional use permit. Van Buskirk Homes LLC on the behalf of Myron Van Buskirk second amended and restated revoked trust has applied for conditional use permit for a multifamily dwelling unit between 5 and 12 units located at the 900 block of West Norway Avenue, legally described as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this. Notices were sent out to the neighbor, signs posted, published in the paper. There was one letter in favor of this and 5 letters opposed to this. The applicant would like to put 2 fourplexes on this property running east and west. At our last Board of Adjustment hearing, you had this Van Buskirk talk about doing these fourplexes that are up on Lakeview Lane. It'd be the same layout as what those would be. They'd be actually accessing it through the apartment complex to the west, coming around, going through the drainage. They put a couple culverts in there through the drainage pond, and then they'd have one on the north side, one on the south side, and street would go through the middle with a hammerhead on the end. There's a layout. It'd have to be turned 90 degrees, obviously, because north on that is facing to the side. But it gives you kind of an idea of what they're planning for that location. Concerns from neighbors were drainage, snow removal, access to it. We are requiring them to do a drainage plan for this area. Originally in this area, you can see that there's a drainage pond in that area that was, we believe, designed for actually another 12-plex at this location. But we want to make sure that there is enough retention in that pond to be able to hold that. Because when we do get storm events, this is an area where the street does flood as well. So we want to make sure that we're not putting any more water onto neighbors for that. And access, like I said, would be through the apartments to the west. They would not be accessing from the 12-plex area. During construction, they put fence up for this width so they wouldn't be able to access that way either. I can answer any questions that you have for me.
Yeah, so Mark, when I think about this access, the road, so the apartments, that's all parking lots. So they would be just driving through the parking lot
Correct.
Of the other apartments. And is that something we just say that's okay? You just drive through their parking lot?
It's their land already.
Oh, it is. Okay,
Yep,
same
yep.
people.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
So how's that going to actually drain? Because I know that's a horrible draining area down that area.
So right now it drains, Joe Schrader, Public Works Director. Right now it drains to the south and then to the east on Norway. It's part of, eventually it gets into the east central drainage basin, which flows north down Main Street, then continues to Dry Run Creek.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll just say I used to live there. That was in my backyard. And I was under the understanding when I built there, I actually bought, I believe, from Van Buskirk. And the understanding they were going to build a 12-plex. So I would be ecstatic if they were building something lower than what you live in now, Tim. I mean, it's a beautiful building, but I would rather see the 2 4-plexes than another 12-plex like they have. And as far as draining, I never had water in my basement from flooding there. So I do believe it's adequately sized for this. There is that strange piece of property. I know the people were concerned. I listened to planning and zoning.
and they own, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, you own that little sliver of land where people were concerned about walking down to Norway Street. They could walk right on that, correct?
We do currently own that little sliver of land along with the 2 squares to the north. We are in process of determining what we're going to do with those. By the time this project opens, I don't foresee us owning any of those small pieces.
Tried 3 times to buy it from you.
Okay. Looking for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Come on up.
Yeah, my name is Dave Driscoll. I live at 1519 South Miller. And we have had water come around the southeast corner of that Van Buskirk property and come into our yard during a very heavy rain and such. And in the spring when that thaws. If you look at the center going north and south on that property, it's kind of like a gentle knoll going up around there. And that does drain somewhat to the east onto our property there. It's not a big issue, but all I ask is, that we have a proper study done on it and proper drainage. I've never had water in my basement either because of that water standing in my yard. But at the same time, yeah, it does come through on that corner. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
I think in that parking lot, Tim, it's not a catch basin, but is there an inlet of water in that corner there right next to his garage? And that's where he's saying the water may be missing it and running into his backyard. Yep, right there.
I don't believe so, no. I think that in between the 2 properties, there's a retention pond. And I think that retention pond was designed originally, the 1525, 1523 properties was originally going to be a 12-plex, along with this property that we're looking at here, and where the current property is a 12-plex. I believe all of those were designed to have that retention pond have all of that water. It is my understanding of that anyways. As Mark said, me and him have had some conversations about this, that they're going to do water studies to make sure that the retention pond still meets the standard for what they have going forward for that. I also think that one of the things to think about is the gentleman standing by the podium right now, I forget your name, I'm sorry,
Jordan,
did speak to several of the residents in the area during planning and zoning and then after the meeting as well. And one of the things that was discussed was fencing off and putting some fencing up for neighbors as well, that I think alleviated a lot of the concerns with neighbors during that time.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience want to come up to the podium? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reconvene in City Council. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City Council to reconvene in regular session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Bathke. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discussion on request to make the municipal band part of Park and Recreation Department. Who wants to start with this one? Susan, would you like to start? Oh, we're doing the municipal band. Would you like to start?
Well, I guess I can start. So we have Danielle DeCripe and Joel Van Persons from the Mitchell City Band. I was contacted, I don't know, a couple of months ago probably, and I really think that they're going to be able to tell the story the best. We have had additional conversations since the original time when they wanted to become a city entity. And I talked to Danielle and told her that the recommendation would be maybe that instead of being a city entity, that we talk about finding other ways to finance some of the costs. So you have something that you want to, why don't you do your presentation and then we can take it from there.
Sounds good. I'll keep it really brief. You guys are aware that there's a city band. You're actually incorporated a year before the city was incorporated. So the Mitchells had a city band for many, many, many years. If you go to the Historical Society, you can find all those documents. We've had very few directors in that time, which is really cool. But with Joe Peckus retiring, we started running it as a board. So we were sharing the load across many people. In that process, we've discovered that there have been many different versions of our relationship with the city. And Stephanie's been doing a great job of helping us traverse some of those as we're coming up to them. So we've since become a 501c3 nonprofit with the state of South Dakota, but now we're running into a little bit of a hiccup with insurance. So because we're not a city entity, we aren't necessarily covered under all of the insurance, but our trailer particularly is titled and licensed through the city. So there's some gray areas that have been kind of uncovered over the last 5 years since we've been running as a board. So we do a lot of things throughout the community. Primarily, you guys help us fund through a subsidy 8 concerts in the summer out at Hitchcock Park. We do pay our members who play in that band a little bit of a stipend to cover their costs. We have a lot of people driving from different areas, so from Plat to Sioux Falls to just, the area teachers, Mount Vernon, etc., and just cover some of their expenses from gas to just normal wear and tear on their instruments. With that subsidy, that is 100% of our funding. We pay all of that out. We do pay Joel $1,800 for his time. He puts in about 5 hours every week during the summertime. Outside of the summertime, we then do a lot of things that we don't pay our members for. So Memorial Day at Servicemen Cemetery, we do that. That is all volunteer. We go to Sioux Falls and play for Midwest Honor Flight when we know that there's somebody from Mitchell that is coming back on that flight to help welcome them home. We do Christmas at the Capitol. We play at local area events like Oktoberfest as we're able to get members. And historically, we've done all of those things plus. So we're just looking for a great way to get kind of our needs met, for lack of a better term, just because we don't make any money outside of the subsidy. So it always feels a little weird coming to the subsidy meeting and filling out that particular application because we're not a business of any type. We don't provide a bunch of services. We do provide culture to the community, and we think that we're a great asset to that. So we're open to however we can make that work for the city and for the band, and we do use a lot of city facilities, so we do have a couple questions around that depending on your guys' recommendation.
Right. So currently, just discuss a little bit, like your music is stored at the Armory currently, and you have one of you has a key to the Armory so that you can access that.
Yep.
What other crossover is there with the city?
So our trailer is stored at Hitchcock in the off season, and then we also don't pay any usage for the bandstand.
So one of the suggestions, I know Jeff and I had probably the most preliminary conversation, and then we talked again, and probably the easiest way to tackle this, and I think this is how Stephanie would agree, would be to increase your subsidy. And I mean, I don't know if we need to go above that or beyond that, but what's your recommendation, Stephanie?
Well, I guess my comment was if you're going to make it a city entity, that's one thing, because that's part of our regular budget process. If council wanted to consider increasing the subsidy, they would need to include that on the application forms that are currently posted. And just to clarify with the trailer registration, we don't remember exactly, but it's like registered for a period of years. And when we discovered that was one of the things that came up when Joe retired, we had already registered it. So, and as far as materials that are stored in the Armory, we found out during one of our insurance audits that they're not covered under our insurance because the city doesn't own the materials. So our insurance's recommendation was for them to get some type of renter's insurance. So it's up to council. If you're considering wanting to increase the cost for that, then they would do so on the subsidy application. But either way, I figure those things have value, and you want to have them covered. And we know we can't cover them on our insurance.
What would insurance be? A couple, $200-$300 a year?
It ends up being about $1,000 to $1,500 a year. And where we thought it was a little unique is that we asked you guys for the subsidy for you guys to pay us to then turn around and pay our insurance. So we didn't know if there was a way to work it where we were an entity and we were just covered under your guys' existing insurance policies. And Jeff and Susan had some conversations about us having our members being paid, and that doesn't seem like there's a workaround for everybody having to have background checks and W-2s, even though we're paying them about $150 to $170 dollars for their time this summer. But we're, like I said, we're open to it. It just seemed kind of weird to ask you guys for more money to turn around and pay something that you guys already have blanket policies on.
And right, but if there's, just to clarify though, even if it was being covered under the city's policy, that would also cost us more money. It wouldn't be a blanket coverage for the money we're already paying. So either way, there's an increased cost to make sure those materials are covered. It's just whether it's through private insurance, and we can't cover it on the city's insurance.
So one of the other things that was pointed out is that in order to insure the trailer, there has to be a vehicle that is attached to it. Like you can't just insure a trailer that doesn't have something to pull it with. So Joel has, like, it would be connected to your automobile insurance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's kind of the other thing. So the insurance payment would probably be directed to you. Is that how you interpreted that?
We would have, based on our preliminary quotes that we were seeking out, we could do all the liability insurances under the city band, but then somebody would have to personally insure it under one of their vehicle policies to reimburse that back. And the estimates we got on that was between $250 to $350 a year. We need to get some updated quotes because it's been a few months since we looked at that.
So would it be fair to ask you to get those numbers and then to just include that on your subsidy request? And then when you come back for the subsidies, then we can have that discussion and talk about the finer points of it.
Yeah, no, we can definitely update the quotes and add that to our subsidy application. And the only things that, and we already discussed this, but the things that we want to work out is to just ensure that as the city band, we still get use of the band shell rent-free, storage for the trailer rent-free, and use of the armory and some access to that, because we have a lot of young professionals who work 9 to 5, so us having 24-hour access to the armory to have 2 or 3 people to be able to be up there is important to us to make sure that we can maintain.
We'll just have to talk about the key thing administratively. I know we just want to ensure that the keys are to an assigned individual and not used for other purposes, but we can talk about that.
Okay, great. So then I guess, I don't know, are we looking for any kind of action?
There's no action
scheduled. So so it's just a discussion. So we'll just, I guess, pick it up at subsidy.
Yeah, I would say just whatever else you need, just ask for it. It'd be a lot easier than. Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, you're cracking on that application.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for all you guys do. It's your real credit to our community.
Okay, next, Lake Mitchell project update by Bar Engineering. We'll start with Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Eric Lund with Bar Engineering is here to give an update on where we're at with the drawdown project and schedules for that project as well as the dredge project. So I will turn it over to Mr. Lund.
We were. Doesn't work anymore, sorry.
No worries.
Just
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you all. It's been a little while since I've been here, so looking forward to connecting. My name is Eric Lund. I'm an engineer with Bar Engineering Company out of Minneapolis, and I've been invited to give an update on the Lake Mitchell project. So we'll kind of walk through where we're at in the design, bring you up to speed on some updates on that in permitting, and then conclude with a discussion around the schedule. I don't have a lot of background in here, as I feel like we've talked about this project numerous times, but if there's a need to go back and discuss something, just let me know. And if you want to, I've only got about a dozen slides, so if you want to interrupt me or have a conversation as I go through, that's totally fine too. So at a high level, what have we been up to over the past year or so? And then I'll go through some detail on each of these items, or the majority of these items. We've been having monthly coordination meetings with the mayor and city staff to kind of talk through where we're at, talk about progress, milestones, upcoming deliverables, things like that. And those have been really productive and have highlighted things we need to be thinking about and direction we need to be taking. On the design side, we've completed a coring investigation of the existing spillway, advanced the initial drawdown design. We've been taking a look at more recently the irrigation supply needs for Lake Mitchell water. Have been developing the permanent drawdown structure design, and then working on dredging and disposal site design updates as well. On the permitting side, we've been working a lot with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and have been working on a number of the items that the federal permitting component brings in. So threatened and endangered species, cultural resources, and special aquatic sites. And I'll go through what all those mean in some upcoming slides. So starting with sort of the initial phase of the project, I have this sort of ordered sequentially for the most part. We've been working on the drawdown and dam reconstruction design. And so this winter, we completed a coring investigation of the existing spillway. And the reason for that were we want to take a look at sort of the integrity of the structure itself, take a look at the condition of the concrete, the condition of the underlying foundation materials, try to investigate some uncertainties in the spillway construction. So this thing was built in the 40s or 50s, and there aren't a lot of really good records of sort of how it was built. So we were trying to kind of take a look under the hood and get a sense of what we're going to be breaking into. And then from that, we wanted to kind of decide, so which side, is there a better side of the spillway to perform the initial removal? Our observations from that investigation were that on the south side of the spillway, there was a deeper profile of concrete. It was not the same on each side. It was down to 26 plus feet on the south side, and it was like 19 feet on the north side. Now, these are a couple of cores, right? And so you can only learn as much as you can learn from a few spot locations, but that was informative. And then it was really kind of variable in composition, typical of that era. There was pockets of really hard, almost like granite type material, and then some sort of more void-like areas. And so, concrete poured in that era was different than what you would see today. So what does that mean from a design? Well, we selected the south side of the spillway for that initial dam breach. And the reason for that is that thicker profile of concrete. If we were able to just take our sort of initial notch out and remain in concrete, that's better than having exposed the subgrade and having sort of the erosive forces as water goes through it, potentially kind of chewing away at that. Again, we know as much as we know from a limited investigation. And for that reason, the second point is, we're building in construction contingencies. Is it not as thick as we thought it was going to be? Is the concrete perhaps, is the integrity a little bit lower? So, patches, ways to stabilize the foundation, things like that make sure that we're going to be not creating a structural issue during the drawdown, and then also during the multi-year period when water is passing through it while the lake is drained. I acknowledge this is going to be too small to really read, but I've got some words on the right that will help. This is just an image of that initial drawdown. So this is step one of phase one of the project, where we're going to use siphons, pumps, cofferdam, whatever means the contractor chooses to remove a lot of the water from the lake. We're going to do that in a controlled manner. So we'll limit that drawdown rate, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is structural and geotechnical integrity and stability of the shoreline. So if you have a big wet body of water and you remove all the water suddenly, it's still up. All the water is still in the soils, right? And so you have this sort of differential pressure. So you have to kind of bring it down slowly so that soil dries out at the same time. And then the second reason, or one of the other reasons, is to not have a big flush of water go down the Firestill Creek that's different than what it typically observes. And that's important for sedimentation, for the the Topeka shiner, which is a protected species that's known to be in the Firestill Creek. And so we'll do that over a extended period of time, and we'll install sort of some downstream sedimentation control so that we're not, sending a bunch of dirty water down the Firestill Creek. After that's complete, we will remove a section of the spillway, and so that's what's shown in kind of that crosshatch pattern on the U-shaped spillway structure itself. It's about a 20-foot wide saw cut. I talked about kind of how we'll stabilize that or be prepared to stabilize that. We'll create a channel in the lake that, basically dredge out to an elevation that works to maintain drainage down through that elevation. And then during that time period, we'll maintain those downstream sedimentation controls. Sticking with the drawdown theme, but thinking out a couple of years now. So the permanent structure after the dam is reconstructed. So I had said I'm going to go sequentially. I'm kind of not now, but sticking with the drawdown. So this is what we have for the permanent structure that would be built after the dredging project and while the dam is being reconstructed. So the purpose of this is to have the ability to manipulate and lower the lake level for future maintenance activities or for whatever other purposes the city has a plan for. And so what this looks like is it's kind of a three-part design. The top of this image is a plan view, so looking down at it with the spillway on the right, and then the bottom half is a section view, so kind of looking at it from the side. They're the same area. But so on the left-hand side, you've got an intake structure, right? So it's a catch base, a submerged catch basin essentially that will bring water in. There's a pipe connected from that goes to a control structure, which is a valve that's set out a ways from the spillway, and then the pipe will extend through that spillway and be constructed into it as the spillway concrete is repoured. So that will likely remain closed 90% of the time, right? It's the lake will be full. The elevation of the spillway crest will not change. So if that valve is closed, there's no difference in what's currently experienced by the lake today. But you could go open it and slowly lower the water,
Yeah, so let me just ask about that. Does the inlet structure, the one that sets away from the spillway, does that sit at all above the water level, or
No.
it will be low?
It'll be lower. Yep. It needs to stay
So
above
it's a
the lake
completely
bed,
separate piece. I didn't realize that it was going to be
separate from
from the spillway. I thought it was going to be built into the spillway, but
the outlet will be in the spillway, but the intake has to go out far enough to be out in deep enough water that it can be at an elevation that will allow us to bring it down.
So how much lower, or how do you decide that it's going to be from the top of the spillway?
I think we're in the order of about 8 to 10 feet.
So
you can see the pipe. The pipe is much lower, but where you see the top of that intake, and there's sort of mechanical and hydraulic calculations that go into that, keeping enough water above it to not create vortex effects and things like that. But
So we have the island. So this is off to the left. So the island is not affected by this at all.
yeah, it's coming out. Except if you want to maybe go back one slide, please. It's kind of coming off more in a south orientation, whereas the island is more to the west.
So there'll only be one elevation for the drawing.
A maximum, right? But you can open the valve as much as you want.
You're saying to 10, we're not going to be able to go down any lower ever.
Not as currently designed.
And
The
from a city standpoint, there is flexibility if we do decide we want to go deeper. It's not something that has to be decided immediately. We've been having conversations about what it would take to get lower, what benefits we have to being lower. Right now, we mainly see this as a need for maintenance on the upper portions of the lake, as well as maintenance for people's structures. Not necessarily that we need a full drawdown, I guess you can't say that we never would want a full drawdown again, but it'd be more difficult to accomplish it this way. Stephanie, if you want to back up a slide. So this is what the spillway will look like through the entirety of the project until we're done with the dredging. That would be that hole in the spillway with the water flowing through the spillway. The pipe that's shown on the next slide, that's the last thing that's installed when all of the dredging of the material is complete.
Okay, so another question. So the depth of the water at that point, at that part of the lake, is what? The overall depth? If like today, what's the depth of the water at that area?
So we're showing this is about 18 feet down from the top of the spillway, and you can see it's sort of how much we have to dredge out to get to that. So it's shallower right now up against the spillway. As you think about how a dam works, sediment kind of builds up over time. I think the deepest part of the lake, and maybe there's fishermen or women in the audience that can provide their perspective, is about 25, 26 feet. And that's, I've got a slide in a little bit that will sort of show like the area of the lake that's deeper than 18 feet, which would be where there'd sort of be some water maintained in the lake, even while it's drained, pending evaporation and things like that. Yeah, so like right in front of the spillway, I think it's probably only 5-10 feet, but it will kind of dredge out to get to that 18-foot drawdown depth.
So your cut will be lower though to drain the whole lake. Like your cut will be 20 foot deep.
Correct. Yes, your cut will be lower than what the pipe elevation is shown as. Yep.
They're going to cut a hole in the spillway that goes 20 feet down so that if we get a big rain, it goes through this huge 20-foot wide hole. But afterwards, when they do the drawdown structure, we'll only have the ability to draw 8 feet, not empty the lake again. The lake will still be 15 plus feet deep.
Yeah, and I mean, we can always reconsider that. One of the challenges is the volume of lake, the volume of water that would have to pass through a pipe. The size of the pipe to drain all of that, it would, either the duration or the size become a little bit impractical at some point. We're doing a 20-foot wide hole, right, to keep the lake drained. And then we're showing a 24-inch diameter pipe. I think it takes a long time to bring down even a foot of water at that size. And talking with Joe and city staff on sort of the objectives of the future drawdown, it seemed like that would work, but that was sort of the design basis.
So this has some kind of a closure piece that will be able to raise and lower, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
To allow more water or less water. So I guess that my struggle is, as long as we're doing it, why not just in case go lower?
So the reason being is if we were ever to draw the lake down again, even if you could get it down with the pipe, to maintain it, you'd still have to cut a hole in the spillway again.
Yep, thank you. I guess this was the image I was referring to. But so we've been looking at city water irrigation supply, and I understand that there's a handful of water users for the lake. The intake locations approximate for those users are in the red stars here. So it's the soccer complex to the north, the golf course and cemetery, and then Cadwell Park. And so we have we developed sort of a hydraulic model to estimate how much water would remain in the lake while it's partially drained. And so those blue areas are where it's deeper than 18 feet, which would be the depth of that drawdown. Again, it won't look exactly like this, right? Evaporation will happen. The contractor will route water in different areas. They'll probably try to keep it out of that northern part where we have our dredging area focused. But the takeaway is that there will be a fairly large area where there still will be a sort of a constant pool of water. The deepest part of it will be in that that larger southern third of the lake. But what and so we took the water usage rates for the golf course that we had and made some assumptions on water usage for the other areas, and then looked at the historical flow rates coming down Firesteel Creek and looked at different, is it a very dry year, a wet year, a normal year, how much water is being used, how much is being maintained. And The conclusion was that the pool of water should be enough to meet the city needs for the golf course, the cemetery, and the park. The location of a soccer complex makes that really almost impossible to try to get water up there, right? So it's just so much shallower. It's such a long distance that trying to either extend a pump or a pipe or pump water from there would be quite a challenge. And then the last comment is that, you know, the size of that pool, the availability of water is going to be entirely dependent on Firestill Creek flow rates, right? So if it's a normal year, normal, you know, whatever that means these days, I guess it wouldn't be a challenge. But if we stack on, let's say, 2 really, really dry years in a row, by the end of that period, this pool will have shrunk pretty small, and we'll have to be kind of reconsidering, probably maybe dialing back rates, things like that. I imagine it'll be sort of an adaptive approach. But yeah, again, the takeaway was that there's going to be, in our estimation, enough water to meet the needs for all but the soccer complex. And so the next thing we're working on is so each of those locations has intake structures going out into the lake that are not going to be in the right spot when we have the lake drained and the water kind of pulls away from the edges and goes to deeper locations. So we're working on designing connections to basically take the water from where it will be pooled to the distribution network, to the wells and pumps and pipes that feed the irrigation needs. On the permitting side, as I mentioned earlier, we've had, a half dozen or so interactions with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And the reason that we've prioritized that is it's probably the most sort of lengthy potential permit process, and it pulls in a bunch of other evaluation needs. We had I guess I'll call it a win here a few months ago, where we determined that the project will qualify for a nationwide permit versus an individual permit. And I won't bore you with the details on that, but what it means is it streamlines the permitting efforts. It makes it a little easier and a little faster. But any federal permit, whether it's nationwide or not, triggers a handful of other evaluations, including special aquatic sites, and I'll define that in a minute, threatened and endangered species, and cultural resources. So I've got a couple of slides here on each of those, what we've been doing for those. So special aquatic sites are things like wetlands, vegetated shallow areas, mud flats. There's others, but we did a sort of a desktop delineation of where they are in Lake Mitchell, and the key findings were there's a handful of vegetated shallows sort of around the fringes and in the upper reach of the lake. There are a couple of areas that are probably classified as wetland. The largest of which is right downstream of the bridge at the mouth of the lake, and then a small area around the island. And then a couple of little areas like classified as mud flats that are way down the southern tip of the lake, and those won't really be affected by our project. We've reported these findings to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'll talk in a couple of slides about what the design implications are. Threatened and endangered species, we've had consultations with Fish and Wildlife and South Dakota, U.S. Fish and Wildlife and South Dakota Game Fish and Park. I had mentioned earlier, there's the Topeka shiner. It's a protected species known to be in Firestill Creek. When we described the project and how we're going to control the rate of water coming out, control the sedimentation, they determined that there would not be an effect on the Topeka shiner, which is good. And then there were no other protected species in our project area identified. So those consultations are complete and will feed into that nationwide permit. And then on the next slide, the cultural resources. So these are things like artifacts, archaeological things. We did what's called a phase 1 report, literature review, submitted that to the state and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Again, it's really small at this scale here, but there's a couple dozen, findings, but most of them are either, nowhere near the project area or haven't been mapped or, likely aren't real, I guess. the primary concern is what's classified in these databases as the Mitchell site, and that's the prehistoric Indian village area. And so that one is of higher concern to the agencies that are focused on these resources. And so the recommendations for that is to develop we call it inadvertent discoveries plan. You know, if you dig into something, what are you going to do? Stop, reassess, those kinds of things. And then there could be either like a tribal or archaeological monitor, a person that's experienced in this that, you know, wants to observe some of the activities. Second recommendation is we should just adjust our footprint to not dredge right next to the village. And I think that's not different from what our plan has been anyway, or not very different. And then we're working on getting a in-field archaeological investigation done at Firesteel Park, where we will be disturbing more native ground, I guess. So let's go out there and kind of do some shovel tests and see if you identify anything of concern.
So just out of curiosity about that, this is a man-made lake, so it was built 100 years ago. So wouldn't any burial sites have been already disrupted 100 years ago, and what we would be doing we wouldn't be doing something more? Am I wrong about that?
No, I think your logic ties in with ours, and that's why we're focused on doing this sort of the second step of the investigation at Firesteel Park, right, where it's not human-made. I think by shifting our dredging footprint just away from that shoreline will just give some ease, some good feelings, I guess, right, for folks that are concerned about that. But no, we have made that argument through our interaction so far, is that we're only intending to, and not only that, we're only intending to remove the sediment that's filled in on top of the constructed lake bed. Yeah, and that's been very helpful in all of these permitting discussions. Is the intent of the project is not to change the original human-made lake bed. But yep. Okay. So on the dredging side, you've seen this image before. It's marked up a little bit now, but we're finalizing the permit level dredge footprint based on those permit evaluations. And so, like I just said, you know, we had showed sort of a small sliver of dredging next to the Mitchell site. We'll just get rid of that, make it easier. So avoid dredging in that area. We're working on getting sort of a field verification of some of those special aquatic sites that are within our dredging footprint to verify their presence. It doesn't mean that we can't still dredge in those areas. It just will require a little bit of additional consultation and potentially some mitigation. But, you know, you see I've got that canal area highlighted to the same point you were just making. That's, you know, man-made as well and pretty recent. So we'd like to think that that'll be, we can resolve that issue. So then we'll finalize the bid level dredge footprint after the initial drawdown is done, and we can, you know, fly a drone, get some updated survey done, we collect some additional data. I had just mentioned this. We're not intending to change the original lake bed, and that's critical for the nationwide permit and some other permits as well. That'll be less. We're just cleaning it up, right? We're not changing what was intended to be there. And then we'll dispose of the dredge material at Firesteel Park. I don't have an image showing that, but we're working on that design update as well. So targeted schedule, we're going to get that Army Corps nationwide permit application or pre-construction notification submitted in the very near future. Like I said, we got the good news on that in the past couple of months, and so now that we got that, we're really put the pedal down for that one. Other permits will come, prior to issue for bid, or some will be prior to construction. There's some permits you don't get until you have a contractor on board, things like that. From the construction standpoint, we're thinking about this in 2 phases and 2 contracts. So the first phase being that initial lake drawdown, and then the second phase being everything else. So the dredging and disposal and reconstruction of the dam, the construction of that permanent drawdown structure. So we're looking, like I said, we're getting that permit application submitted ASAP. We we've been keeping the Army Corps informed as we go, and so I got just a note last week that looks like we're on track. We're kind of getting all the pieces done that we need to get done for those other aspects, and so I'm hopeful that we can get that permit review pretty quickly, and then we can go out to bid shortly thereafter, and start construction yet this fall. Get it drained before the lake freezes up. Phase 2, then we would kind of said that we're working through the design on that. We'll get some additional data to be collected after the lake is initially drained. Get that bid package put together to go out on the streets next spring, and be ready to start that construction project next spring, next summer, and that'll go for, like we've talked about, probably 2 years.
I remember in the early days of this discussion that there was talk about that they would probably want to do this one when it was cold, because it would be easier to get through the muck if it was cold instead of wet and messy. Has that changed now?
I think that'll still be part of it, right? We'll go through a winter or two. I think the volume of material we're talking, we can't just do the winter work, or it'll extend the schedule by multiple years. So I think as the schedule has played out, I don't think it makes sense to get the lake drained and then just wait, or just delay a year to get to that point. So I think that'll still be an aspect of it. I think, the contractors will have really good ideas on how they want to sequence things. I imagine they'll start, in the upper areas that have been drained for longer, have had a larger chance to dry out more. But yeah, certainly, freezing conditions will be helpful for aspects of this.
Explain why. I mean, I look at dam reconstruction as a specialty business.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you tie it with the dredging and disposal, where I assume the dredging guy is going to hire the dam guy and put 15% on it? Why would you not do a phase 2 A and B or something instead?
You could do that. I think as Joe and I have discussed this, there's some benefit in having fewer contracts that you're holding. As far as, there's less finger pointing sometimes. Then it's like, well, you weren't ready for me, and now you weren't ready. I wasn't, those types of things. But, I think that is open for discussion if there's, you bring up good points. I'm not trying to dismiss them by any means. I think we could have a conversation around that.
Yeah, I think the big question there is, what's a bigger benefit, controlling the schedule or the contracts being separate? So that's how Eric and I will weigh through those pros and cons and take a path moving forward.
I got a quick question. So what you're saying is the permitting, that's not all of it's not approved yet, correct?
Correct.
So I know government doesn't move real fast. What happens if something happens there? I mean, it takes a while, doesn't it?
So we're fortunate that the person that we're dealing with at the Army Corps has been very engaged and very responsive. And the fact that we have the nationwide permit, they have, I don't want to say obligations, but they have milestones or timelines that they're supposed to review things within. If we don't get the permits, we can't build the project.
No, that's what I'd be concerned about, is getting everything permitted so the project can move forward.
Yeah, we've been focusing really hard on getting all of the pieces done right. If you send in a permit application and it's incomplete, they just send it back to you and they don't start the timer. So we've been trying to keep this gentleman in the loop as we go through ticking off each of these investigations or evaluations. But yeah, that permitting is a risk in any construction project.
In a perfect world, when would the drawdown start? If everything just fell into place, what's the very earliest?
Very earliest? October. All right. Thank you.
You got more slides? That's it.
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's thank you slide.
All right.
I would just like to mention that Mr. Lund will be at a meeting tomorrow in this same room at 5:30. for any citizens that would like to come and ask questions about the project. It will be the same presentation at tonight. So if we find out that everyone that's here tomorrow was here tonight, we'll skip the presentation and go straight to questions. But otherwise, we'll plan to do the presentation again and then answer any questions that the public has.
One more quick question. Drawdown with no moisture, how long would it take?
Couple months. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
One real quick one, if I could. Maybe Joel's the one to answer this.
I've been trying to get away.
Yeah, you almost got out of there. So obviously, we've talked about having more settlement ponds up north and to the west. Is that have any bearing at all on what we would do or how you design this drawdown? I'm sure you took all of that into consideration, but just making sure, because we know that we're going to have to add more up at Firesteel.
Right. No, that's been considered as part of the design. If it turns out that there is an alternate site that needs to be considered for dredge material, that would be handled through the design process. And again, the Army Corps would be included as part of that moving forward.
Are we doing questions from the audience tonight, or are we saving that till tomorrow? Does anyone in the audience have any questions for this fella? Okay. All right. No more questions. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, action to award bid for Cadwell Infield improvements, number 2025-23, Mr. Schrader.
Mayor, I'd like to table that to the next meeting.
We would have a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to table this till the next meeting. Any further discussion? Okay. Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion to table carries. Action to approve quote with Williams Masonry, Inc. for Cadwell dugout improvements. Are we going to table that one too? Mr. Sabers? You want to table the next one too, since it has to do with Cadwell?
Negatory.
Oh. Okay. All right, Mr. Schrader.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council. Second, ready to get this pulled up.
I was reading.
All right. Quote was requested from Williams Masonry, Inc. to replace the front half of the dugouts at Cadwell Baseball Field. The enclosed portion of the dugout is not being replaced. The price provided by Williams Masonry, Inc. is $58,000, with an additional $500 for insurance, totaling $58,500. Park staff does recommend awarding the quote to Williams Masonry. Can answer any questions you may have.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Sabers. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
Can you maybe just explain a little bit about it, Dan?
Well, Jim's here. Why don't you come up, Jim? You know more than me. Jim did a lot of work. He took pictures. He's at the Twin Stadiums in their dugout. He's got connections.
I know him. Oh, you do have the pictures, but very good. Who did that, Joe? Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the back part of the dugout. So where you see players sitting right there in that picture, that part will remain, and then we'll blow out the front of the dugout. This picture is actually from a baseball diamond in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where they have the Little League World Series every year. Major League Baseball now comes in and plays Major League Baseball game at that facility on Sunday night every year. And when they came in, they said in order for this to do this, you have to get your field up to Major League specifications, and that meant light, and that meant different kind of infield mix, and that meant the dugouts. And so when I was looking through all kinds of designs on dugouts, this one kind of stuck out because it's exactly what we want to do. That's the old dugout right there. So the back part where cement stays, then the front part gets blown out to where that green patch of AstroTurf is at right there. And there'll be 2 steps to get up, and then players will stand on a platform, and they'll be able to stand here, and it's going to be like 52 inches high, so we'll come here and lean over the fence to watch games. Right now, one of the problems we have, if you go back to the old dugout, you can't see it from that picture, but we've got like an 8-foot area in the front. You can see where those steps are at and go up. That's the center of the dugout. that's been a nightmare for state tournaments and regular season games where players are sitting on the outside because they want to watch the game, and the only other way they could watch the game in the dugout would be through the screen by standing there. So this will help the fact that players won't be out there. It'll be totally enclosed. It'll be safer than what it's been for the last 20-some years, and for players to be able to lean over the top. It'll provide more room. It'll just be kind of a cooler atmosphere. And, you know, we keep trying every year at Cadwell Park to do things better to make the state amateur baseball tournament a better tournament all the time. And we've done a lot of things outside the field, but we haven't done anything for players for a while. So this is what we're doing to do something for players. So that's basically it.
Thank you.
And I'd like to just say on behalf of Jocko, I'd like to thank him because he's paying for half of this project. So without his help, we probably couldn't get this project done. So I'd like to thank him.
Okay, further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve utility cost and annexation agreement A 2025-40 with Maynard and Betty Heeb, 1725 Scenic Court. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Maynard and Betty Heeb, located at 1725 Scenic Court Drive, had requested city water service. Property owners are required to sign an annexation agreement prior to receiving city services since they are located outside of city limits. Property owners' water service connection plan will be approved by Public Works, and improvements will be completed at no cost to the city. The full agreement is attached for your information. Staff recommends council approval and to authorize the mayor to sign on their behalf.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Barrington. Okay, further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve grant offer agreement A 2025-41 for the infrastructure investment of Jobs Act IIJA Airport Infrastructure Grant AIG for the construction of revenue producing hangar grant offer AIP 33. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. The airport is requesting City Council approve the grant offer for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act Airport Infrastructure Grant for the construction of a revenue-producing hangar. A request was authorized by Council on April 7th, which requested $1,070,650 with 90% federal share and 10% city share. The city has been awarded the requested amount, and this is for the bid that was approved or awarded to Pro Contracting. The proposed hangar will consist of 4 separate areas to store aircraft. Staff does recommend council approval and the grant authorization for the mayor to sign and for the grant offer to be executed. I can answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer. Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve agreement A 2025-42 with the Davidson-Hanson Ambulance District for Rural Emergency Medical Services Agreement. You want to go?
Well, unless Justin wants to.
No, go ahead.
All right, so we're finally there. So the contract that the district signed is it's a 5-year contract with a 3% increase, with 2 extensions, one in 31 and one in 32, if so is decided. Basically, what it's saying is we will continue to provide ambulance services. The city will be responsible for those services, the training of personnel, the equipment. That we can't necessarily guarantee that. I mean, we only have 4 ambulances, so if 4 ambulances out, we will get there when we can. Other than that, it's Justin. We're not entering into basically a joint cooperation with them, right? So the city will maintain everything that it currently does. It's just the additional $700,000 starting. The only thing in there that is a little different for us is in G, it talks about responding east of 424th Avenue. We currently do not respond east of 424th Avenue in Hanson County. We used to years ago. Right now, McCook County ambulance does, but that will change. And part of this whole process was that the people east of 424th Avenue currently get to go to they get the option to go to Sioux Falls. And we agreed that we could do that based off of the battalion chiefs or lieutenants being able to make that decision. Ultimately, it comes down to the city's discretion if we're able to do that or not. More than likely we will, unless there's a lot going on over here. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
When do we start hiring personnel?
I wish tomorrow. We're going to start interviews in September. We've got a lot of applicants. We have to make sure that they all qualify. So actually, Assistant Chief Bamer will be making phone calls tomorrow and lining that up. So we will interview in September. Talking with Stephanie, I don't think that there will be additional money there that we can at least.
We won't have the budget till January 1st because that's when the new levy or the new ambulance district.
I mean, I would love to be able to do the site testing and the 1582 physicals and stuff ahead of time so we can bring them on January 2nd. But the goal would be to block off the first 2 to 3 weeks of January with Dr. Price, who does the site testing, with Akel, who does the 1582 physicals, so that hopefully within that first couple of pay periods, we'll bring them in and we'll start field training, which will be another 10 weeks. There's 2 weeks of in-house classroom, and then it'll be an additional 8 weeks in the field training per shift. So
one thing we're monitoring is because of the current status of our contingency budget, we just can't commit to doing that, but we'll know where we are closer to the end of the year. If things look like we could still do the testing this year because other budgets are down, then we'd be able to start. But we've been kind of on hold waiting to see what turns out.
Yeah.
He's ready to go.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, let's get her done. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your work on this. Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, number 21, we've been recommended to move until after 33. Is that right, Mr. Johnson?
Yep, do it after the rezoning.
Okay, do we have to get a motion to move it? Or just move it?
If anybody on the council objects, then we could do motion, but otherwise it can just be done by consent.
Okay. Does it? Everyone consents. Thank you. Okay. Oh, these are a lot of plats. Okay, action to approve resolution R 2025-48, plot of track 2, as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission approved this unanimously. This is outside city limits, but within the 3 mile Sodus County's jurisdiction. It'll be used for pasture land for the person that's purchasing the farmstead to the north. There is no access currently off of the main road to the east there, but if they would, it'd be by Rusty Weinberg from the county DOT. The county will hear the plat tomorrow at County Commission. I can answer any questions that you have for me.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Bathke. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-49, plot is shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this unanimously. This is the next step in this area for the proposed steakhouse that would be going on lot 2B1. You've seen this before. It was previously platted for 2D, 2B, and 2C. 2C1 and 2B1 have now been annexed into city limits. There was a lot 1 that is being partially vacated, which is now going to be part of Commerce Street. But with the way that lot 1 was platted on the west side of where lot 1 is, where lot 1A is now, it's 6,000 square foot. You can see that dashed line. That was part of lot 1 before. So that would have been a non-conforming size for a lot. That does meet the zoning requirements for 6,000 square feet for lot 1A. In the future, when they do their master plan for the rest of the area, that plat will probably, or that lot will probably be vacated and into a bigger lot than at that time. But with them doing this, Commerce Street will be a right of way. It's getting straightened out for better, for safety. And there is an easement that still gets to lot 2D through 2C1. I can answer any questions that you have for me.
Motion by Mr. Girdle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-50. Plot is shown in the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission, motion to approve 5A, 1 abstain and 1 absent. This is currently outside city limits, but within the 3 mile, so it is our zoning jurisdiction. It is currently urban development zone. Later on in this meeting, you have the rezone for that whole 25 acres. This still would meet the qualifications for the zoning of that PUD as well. County will hear this tomorrow, but like I said, it's our zoning jurisdiction. I can answer any questions that you have.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mrs. Sharks. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-51. Plot as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission, motion to approve the plat with the amended language. At Planning Commission in the packet, we didn't have the final plat. It didn't have any deputy or vice chair language with any of the signature blocks. So we approved that with those amendments. What you have in front of you on your packet actually is the final plat because it has all the correct verbiage in there. Poet is looking to increase their rail size. So the next 4 plats are all for doing that. We do have a water line easement, which is actually their water line. So they're working with Joe for if they need to do any work in that. We've got information that they can get for that. I can answer any questions that you have. Oh, excuse me, County will hear this tomorrow at their meeting as well.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Shavers, second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-52. Plot is shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Ditto.
Nice, I like it.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kamarko, second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-53. Plot is shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Ditto.
Nice.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-54. Plot is shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Ditto.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Mr. Goldhammer. Second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anyone in the audience like to discuss this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2025-55. Surplus of the auction of 3 trailers and 1 building in the 1100 and 1200 blocks of East First Avenue. Mr. Johnson.
All right, so this should look somewhat familiar. The city's done a couple of these surplus and auctions relating with that Parkview area that the city acquired earlier this year. This most recent round would include the 3 trailers and 1 building. The 1 building was previously surplused. The auction, there was nobody in attendance, so the idea would be to put it back on auction this time since the other trailers are going on there, give it another shot. And I think the date for that auction would currently be scheduled for July 30th at 10 a.m. That would be done at the actual Parkview site this time instead of City Hall. So with that, if there's any questions.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Girdle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? I'll give an update. We had someone else just move out recently. I think there's 8 occupied trailers that we own now. So we're down there as a ways. Yeah. What do you want the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve temporary easement with the South Dakota Department of Transportation for the new bike path to Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. The South Dakota Department of Transportation is installing new sidewalk and ADA improvements east and west of Ullman Street from Norway to Havens. There is also a new sidewalk being installed on the east side of the bypass from 8th Avenue to Minnesota Street. A portion of sidewalk from 8th Avenue to Minnesota Street requires temporary easements on city-owned property. State compensates landowners for temporary easements. However, it is typical for cities to waive those fees. The contractor hired for the project will be required to destroy any disturbed ground. Staff recommends council approval of the temporary easement agreement, waive the associated payment, and to grant authorization for the mayor to sign. I can answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? They're starting this work already, so it's going to be exciting. Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Request to participate in North American Wetland Conservation Administration Grant NACA by Far Wide Conservation Trust, Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Steve Donovan with Far Wide Conservation Trust is requesting the City of Mitchell to participate in a NACA grant. The proposal will be requesting $3 million to complete 26 different projects, which I think has that amount changed? The $3 million, the 26 projects?
That hasn't, but some other things have.
Okay. Or project match for the NACA grant. That would include that would include $570,000 spent towards the Ducks Unlimited Wetland project west of the lake, which created 37 acres of wetlands, and then also the $200,000 for the purchase of the Kiner property. With that, I think I will let Steve go through the new NACA grant and let him answer any questions you may have. Go ahead, Steve.
Sure, thank you. The NACA grant program is a federal wetlands grant, and I'm the guy that wrote the grant proposal for the Firestill Creek NACA grant several years ago, and then the city subsequently hired me to administer that grant. We're wrapping that one up, working on the last project right now. That'll be done this year. So I'm writing another NACA grant proposal, the one Joe's talking about. This one would have Far Wide as the grantee. The geography is the entire state of South Dakota, and it'll be a $3 million proposal. NACA requires a non-federal match, and the more match you have, it's one of the scoring criteria within the proposal. So what I'm asking, as Joe said, is money that the city's already spent on the wetlands on the Kiner property and or on the Kelly property and the acquisition of the Kiner property, allow us to use that as match for the purposes of leveraging this new NACA grant. And the protocol or the procedures allow us to go back in time a couple of years to show this non-federal match. And so with the NACA money, should we get it, the projects include quite a few in the Mitchell area. I mean, right within the Lake Mitchell watershed, with the new project that got added last week, Joe, we're proposing to develop 18 different wetlands that'll total about 117 acres of shallow water habitat within the watershed. So obviously that's going to be some significant benefits to water quality entering Lake Mitchell, as well as improving the health and vigor and diversity of about 1,650 acres of grasslands by working with a rancher. And that's not only that good for wildlife habitat, but if we can help ranchers keep grass instead of converting it to cropland, there's also some significant water quality benefits for the lake. So some of the projects are not identified yet, and they will be once we get the grant. So that's why it's not totally, absolutely clear how much money will be spent in the watershed or within the Mitchell area, but at least $400,000 will be spent on habitat within the watershed, probably go up as we implement the grant, and at least $1.7 million would be spent in the greater Mitchell area. So what I'm asking you is, if you like the idea and you're willing to be a partner and let us use that as match, I just need a signature on a partner letter, which Joe has, and I need it by Thursday at 11 p.m. because that's when the grant's due.
So the only question I have for Mr. Donovan is if for some reason the city's match is not accepted, is the city still required to come up with that portion that we've
Great
committed to?
question. No, that's since we're the grantee. Well, if they disallow it before the grant is ever awarded, they would consider the grant with the revised match numbers, not the original one. If they disallow it at a later date, it's on us then to replace that match with some match somewhere else in the state of South Dakota.
And by us, you mean far wide?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, Steve, would a landowner come to you and say, I'd like to participate, or how do they identify who will be the landowners that?
Both. We've got the 26 different projects, I think 23 of them, we've got identified landowners, proposed projects all ready to go. And then we had a few things that we wanted to get money for without knowing who those landowners might be, like some wetland conservation easements and some wetland restorations. And so we're just proposing, hey, give us this money. We'll go find landowners somewhere in South Dakota and work with them.
The only other thing I would like council to know is if the grant is approved and our match is approved, the Kiner property would be required to place a deed restriction on that piece, similar to what we did on the, remind me the name of the new name.
Oh. Firestone Nature Preserve?
Thank you. Thank you.
It's not the Kelly property?
It is not.
No, it's not.
So that deed restriction was already placed on that property. So it'd be the same deed restriction that we have on that would be now be placed on the Kiner parcel as well.
The same wetland work would be able to be done though on it, correct?
Yeah. What we were told when we did the wetland project is that we're improving it and we're enhancing it. Technically, there is that restriction on the crop ground now, which is still an approved practice just because it can't go backwards, I guess is a good way to look at it.
Okay.
I mean, this is just so great to have this report on the same night as we're talking about the dredging of the lake, because this really has been a two-pronged approach of cleaning up we need to clean up the watershed. This is great to see this kind of progress being made while we're also talking about the dredging. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sharks. Any further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Hearing and second reading on ordinance 2025-09, rezoning of, as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, as this is second reading, nothing has changed with the ordinance after the first reading. During the first reading, there were 4 letters that were opposed to this. Since then, in this packet, there's 20 new letters that are in favor, and I'm passing on another 7 that have been in favor of this as well. So the only new information that I have from first reading is the 27 letters that you've received. You've actually all got them by email as well, I believe, but I'm just bringing them to the meeting for this as well. I can answer any questions that you have.
Motion to place on first reading.
Second.
Second reading.
Second reading.
Second reading, I'm sorry.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to adopt ordinance 2025-09.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sabers, second by Mr. Goldhammer. Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, roll call.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Savers.
Aye.
Goldhammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Motion carries. All right, so we're going to skip back to number 21 now. Sorry, you got excited. Action to approve Resolution R 2025-47, creating tax increment district number 43 and approving project plan. Mr. Johnson.
All right. So just a brief overview on this one. The project, I believe it's Peaceful Pines, right? Is that okay? It's been a while, so Peaceful Pines would be the name of the development. It's being pursued by the landowner and several holding companies. One of those being a larger company that's done these types of developments in a number of other communities throughout the state. This specific development would be a senior living facility, including 21 assisted living units, 18 independent living units, 16 memory care units. The development is expected to generate approximately $1.5 million in payroll throughout the creation of 30 plus jobs. And kind of scroll through the statements here. So staff should back up here. Staff did review the project plan, the application materials. The TIF review committee did meet, go over those items, work with the developer to bring those up to the point that you see in front of you here today. Staff did believe that they'd meet all of the requirements of our local TIF handbook, Mitchell TIF handbook, and the requirements of the state statutes on TIFs. Moving down then into, the project plan's in a little bit different order than we're used to on some of other ones, so I'm looking in the wrong spots for the information I'm used to. The property tax rate, there's a limitation on how much property tax you can have contributing or encumbered by TIFs. That limit is 10%. Our current limit is well under that as to the amount that we have under TIFs. And if we want to get into the project cost, then Stephanie, the total eligible project cost for the project add up to the $2,893,558. That includes grant to the developer, and there also is administrative fees to the city of $375,000. We do have the standard developer agreement terms, legal terms. Those include that the TIF would be there'd be no interest associated with the TIF. The contract or the term of the TIF would be 20 calendar years or until the increment is paid. And then there are also some terms in there as to the developer waiving the discretionary formula, providing our reporting to the city, and then some new language in regards to when those administrative costs would get paid to the city. So you can look in their project cost breakdown, and they have a nice little summary here showing the different categories that end up adding up to that 2.89 million, and then some more detailed breakouts on those costs both before and after that. So moving down, you can see their increment projection shows a projected increment of $2,935,106, which is over the expected TIF, over the requested TIF amount. Some additional findings and reports, and then our maps there at the end that would show the project site in its current state, the proposed development. They included a project timeline that would show where we're at up through completion of the project, and then the zoning map there as well. We did also receive preliminary classification from the state that it would be classified as an economic development TIF. So I think with that, we can open it up for questions, or if there's anybody else on the staff side or ownership side has anything that they'd like to add.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Church, second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to enter into executive session according to SDCL 1-25-2 for employee negotiations.
Can I bring up one thing before you guys close?
I don't know. Will you come up to the podium? I'm guessing they're going to allow it, so keep it brief if you would, please. Yes.
Before I get too much credit or my checking account is overdrawn, Mr. McCardle spoke a little bit wrong. I have raised $29,000 in private funding for the project. I am donating to the project, but my checkbook's not quite that deep. So, Mr. McCardle, thank you for that. But the applause was nice anyway. I kind of.
Well, thanks for raising the funds. Okay. All right. We
Move to go into executive session.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There will be no action after executive session.